recently filed an amended complaint, and a new motion to dismiss is pending, so we'll see how that plays out. And then you had Signet, which settled, I think, for $240 million, and you have Google, which is currently trying to resolve its own Me Too litigation. I don't know if we can move to the next slide or not, but I think at the end of the day, there were very few securities class actions that really kind of came out of this. And look, I guess that's a positive news, right? That means that, the impact of the Me Too movement at least has been, for this type of culture to end within corporations. So, I think it's better that we didn't see a ton of Me Too securities class actions over time. I mean, that's a benefit. Obviously, still a real issue that needs to be identified in the world and be addressed. But I think that the issues have been heard. Corporations and general counsels of companies have gone to programming to learn how they can really kind of prepare the company to address this issue, provide the right resources for victims, and also to allow victims to utilize internal corporate avenues to address and redress issues that happen in the corporate environment. So I think overall, these cases that kind of came through created a nice blueprint for companies to address these types of losses. But at the same time, they did spit out some rather large settlements with Signet and Fox. Between the two of them, $330 million, almost all paid for by insurance. So a significant impact to the insurance industry. But and we'll see how Wynn kind of plays out over the next year. Does anyone have any from the panel any other input on Me Too litigation?
Yeah, no, Ari, as we were preparing for this, we were talking about, since the announcement of the Alphabet settlement and the fund, whether or not we're going to see other plaintiffs' firms potentially look at that as a potential settlement that they would like to emulate. And I think as of now, we're hearing rumblings that some plaintiffs' firms are at least looking at it as something that they want to pursue. But I think it's still too early on to see if that's going to be continued pursuit by the plaintiffs' bar.
Yeah.
I also wonder, sorry, go ahead, Ari.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was going to say, I wonder whether the industry has made any changes to the policy or even in the underwriting process to flush out some of this stuff as well to see if there's a means to reduce the exposure.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting question, Jeff, and I don't think the language in the policy has really changed over time, but I think that maybe 4 or 5 years ago, a D&O carrier, it wouldn't matter if you bought EPL coverage or you didn't have EPL coverage. It didn't really matter to a public company or said, oh, gee, we're going to go this one self-insured. We're not going to, we don't need EPL cover. We can kind of absorb those losses internally. And I think now they can kind of say, well, gee, I think you should have EPL cover because as I saw with some of these matters is that they can, if you don't have EPL cover, those can now be blackboarded as real derivative damages to the company. You start paying out $20 or $30 million settlements to victims of harassment of your directors and officers. That's a real loss. And I don't want you not buying EPL cover and then shifting your EPL losses to your D&O policy and paying it out under the side A as a derivative loss. So I think that underwriters are asking more questions about the other coverages that could be impactful on D&O. I think we see that with this type of litigation, and I think we see it also with
Okay.
So one thing I was going to ask him, and it might actually, until we get him back, it might actually let us sort of segue into talking about the DEI lawsuits. But, the other thing, and I don't want